As we approach the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, I wanted to include Julie in these conversations because she meets uncertainty with both clarity and humanity. Julie also brings a grounded presence to moments that can otherwise feel diffuse or overwhelming. Now, before we begin, let's just take a moment to arrive together. So if it feels comfortable, you might place a hand on your chest or simply notice your breath. And we'll just take one breath together. And then we'll begin. So today I'm joined by Julie Biron, whose work I associate with discernment, steadiness, and a deep respect for personal process. Julie brings a structured educational approach to astrology shaped by her background in training and consulting. And what I appreciate most about her work is the way that she holds astrology as a thoughtful tool for navigating change, not rushing insight or forcing clarity, but supporting people as they move through transitions with care and understanding. So Julie, welcome. Thank you for being here, and I'm so glad that you are.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this.
I am so excited as well. Thank you. I was very glad you said yes and will be one of our voices. So, Julie, I wanted to ask you, when we think about this Saturn Neptune moment that we're in, what have you been noticing in yourself and in the people that you're working with?
What I have been noticing is that uh, people are feeling a call for something more in their life, not always sure what that means and how to make that change, but I'm feeling that everywhere. There's just a call for more, to be more, to do more. But how do we get there?
I love that you're naming that, right? There is this sense of more and deeper and just broader, but it's not always this one consistent thing or one area. And I think as you're talking to the to that, part of what's coming to mind for me is like, what's the blueprint? What's the roadmap, right? And like, how do we get there? And so it brings to mind sort of this question of like, as we sense into this conjunction, this coming together of Saturn and Neptune, what feels most important for people to understand or to hold right now?
For me, I go back to patterns. I use patterns a lot in teaching and just in my life, recognizing patterns, what has been working, what hasn't been working, and where did those patterns come from in life. Sometimes we create the patterns in our life, but a lot of times it's a conditioning with family or environment when we're young. And it's really looking more closely at the patterns in our life and the good ones and the ones that need to shift or be released.
I absolutely love that for several reasons. Patterns are such an important tell, if you will, for us in so many ways. And Julie, if it's okay, I'll share that you have a Facebook group, Be a Light, which I'll link for people on Facebook. And a couple of days ago, you had shared a post, that really kind of highlighted these patterns that were happening across different generations for people, right? And those who noticed the pattern had an opportunity to do something with that. So I love that you're bringing that to mind, and especially as sort of a recommendation or just an observation of what feels important now to just kind of hold and to take notice of. When we pause, we can notice those things. And if we notice them without judgment or without berating ourselves or just kind of reactivity. It gives us the opportunity to be curious, and those patterns will light the way for us. That is
Absolutely.
beautiful.
I
Thank
love the way you said that, like the way for us. Yes, Aries, full of fire, is going to kind of ignite that path and light the way. So, for me personally, I've just been thinking more about my family patterns and really trying to delve a little bit more into uh, my parents.
you.
And I'm hoping to find the information I need to study their astrology more and see the patterns that shaped their lives and how it shaped mine, and so on and so forth.
I really think there's such an important space of healing for us to do exactly what you've described, right? Be curious about some of the patterns in our lives and just sort of where they've shown up and where they've come from, like you said, especially with Aries bringing this ignition forth for us, and to then figure out like what were patterns for them, for our parents, right, our lineage, our ancestry. And I'll share, Julie, I know that that's part of what you'll be speaking to us about on the 20th. So what a beautiful process to hold yourself and to kind of go through and share with us in this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And likewise, with that in mind, like what feels worth paying attention to, especially beneath the noise surrounding this time?
Pay attention to the parts that feel right. I mean, we often focus on the bad things or the things that we're uncomfortable with about our past. But if you have noticed any kind of shift, if you've seen that pattern in your life and said, why does that keep happening? What is it that I need to do to change that pattern? Look at the wins, look at where you have recognized and made changes, and, pat yourself on the back for that, just in a loving way, to love ourselves because, we're human and we make mistakes and we hurt others. But if we notice when it keeps happening, we can make the changes we need to make our lives more fulfilling and more helpful to other people.
So well said, Julie. And especially a reminder here about treating ourselves in a loving way through this process. Absolutely. And, I think a really good example of the discernment that I often see in conversation with you and the work that you bring in. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the clarity, the care that you bring to this, especially at such a time when it can be so loud, right? We can be inquisitive, we can be curious, we can honor growth for ourselves, but from that space of compassion and love, right? That's what'll help cultivate the growth. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. And for those listening, if this conversation resonates, you're warmly invited to join us for the Wholehearted Convergence Summit, taking place live online on February 20th. This is a free gathering held as a shared space for orientation, reflection, and discernment. Not prediction, not urgency, not overwhelm. There's quite enough of that out there, but this will be just a moment to meet this threshold together and with care. And Julie will be one of our contributing voices that'll be joining us alongside a small circle of astrologers and practitioners who are engaging this conjunction thoughtfully and humanely. So if you're feeling drawn, you can learn more and register at the link below. We would love to have you join us.
Absolutely. there'll be some great speakers there. I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to it.
Present company included.
Thanks.
Thank you.